It's time for Defending and Commending the Faith with Joe Mott, inviting the atheist, agnostic, and skeptic to examine for themselves the evidence for the Christian faith. We are all limited by what we do not know and by the things we think we know but are not true. Dr. Joe Mott earned his PhD at LSU and was a distinguished math professor at Florida State University for 38 years, helping to write 3 math textbooks and authoring over 30 research articles in math. He is now the host of this radio program, Defending and Commending the Faith. Here is Joe Mott.
Hello to everyone. Welcome to the program. Followers of Christ are still being called into action for defending and commending the Christian faith. In the previous episode, I had begun to discuss 6 factors of how the process of Darwinian evolutionary theory works, so that we get an idea what Darwin thought about evolution. Previously, I discussed, number 1, common descent with modifications, also called common ancestry. Second, I had begun discussing spontaneous generation, which means that life arose from non-life. Then I gave the Darwinian evolutionary scenario, which assumes a perfect combination of carbon-based molecules in a prebiotic soup where all the ingredients for life just happen to be there at the right place, at the right time, in the right concentrations. The minimum requirements for a living cell were all somehow there miraculously. Then evolution produced from cells to various life forms, including animals, followed by human beings. We could say Darwinian scenario goes from the goo of the prebiotic soup to the zoo to you, or from particles to people, or from microbes to mankind. This is the Darwinian idea of abiogenesis. This notion of spontaneous generation permeated scientific thought for millennia, explaining the seemingly sudden appearance of various life forms. This idea suggested that organisms could emerge fully formed from decaying substances or inanimate materials without the need for parent organisms. During the 1800s, some people believed bats navigated at night by touch. The moon was populated by furry, winged humans. Decaying meat spontaneously turned into maggots, grain changed into rodents, and mud became frogs. Scientists Fransesco Redi, John Needham, and Louis Pasteur proved that life does not come from non-living substances. That is, they proved that spontaneous generation is false. Rather, life is a result of the reproduction of pre-existent life forms, which can come only through various means like seeds, eggs, or other forms of reproduction. That truth marked a significant turning point in scientific understanding, reshaping fundamental biological principles. Allow me to give an almost verbatim essay from gotquestions.org called Flaws in Evolution. Christians and non-Christians alike often question whether the theory of evolution is accurate. Other flaws in the theory of evolution can be separated into 3 basic areas. First, there is the apparent contradiction between punctuated equilibrium, involving events like the Cambrian explosion in the fossil record, and gradualism. Second is the problem in projecting microevolution and chance into macroevolution. Macroevolution has never been observed. The third area is the way Darwinian evolutionary theory has been used to support ideas from political systems like Nazism and Marxism, and theories like social Darwinism, eugenics, which advocates for the elimination of people deemed socially unfit. These theories have been used to justify discrimination and have contributed to some of the most racist social programs over the last 150 years. First, there is a contradiction between the theory of punctuated equilibrium, advocated by Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldredge, and gradualism, advocated by Charles Darwin. This flaw in the theory of evolution occurs between these two ideas are mutually exclusive, and yet there are those that advocate each of them. Gradualism implies that organisms experience a relatively steady rate of mutations, resulting in a somewhat smooth transition from early forms to later ones. This was the original assumption derived from the theory of evolution. Punctuated equilibrium, on the other hand, implies that mutation rates are heavily influenced by a unique set of coincidences. Therefore, organisms will experience long periods of stability, stasis, that is, punctuated by short bursts of rapid evolution, producing a multitude of species like that in the Cambrian explosion. Thus, gradualism seems to be contradicted by the fossil record. Organisms appear suddenly and demonstrate little change over long periods. The fossil record has been greatly expanded over the last century, and the more fossils that are found, the more gradualism seems to be disproved. It was this overt refutation of gradualism in the fossil record that prompted the theory of punctuated equilibrium. The fossil record might seem to support punctuated equilibrium, but again, there are major problems with punctuated equilibrium. The basic assumption of punctuated equilibrium is that very few creatures, all from the same large population, will experience several beneficial mutations, all at the same time. Right away, one can see how improbable this is. Then those few members separate completely from the main population so that their new genes can be passed on to the next generation, another unlikely event. Given the wide diversity of life, this kind of amazing coincidences would have to happen all at the same time. While the improbable nature of punctuated equilibrium speaks for itself, scientific studies have also cast doubt on the benefits it would confer. Separating a few members from a larger population results in inbreeding. This results in decreased productive ability, harmful genetic abnormalities, and so forth. In essence, the events that should be prompting survival of the fittest cripple the organisms instead. Despite what some claim, punctuated equilibrium is not a more refined version of gradualism. They have very different assumptions about the mechanisms behind evolution and the way those mechanisms behave. Neither of punctuated equilibrium or gradualism is a satisfactory explanation for how life came to be as diverse and balanced as it is, and yet there are no other reasonable options for how evolution can operate. The second flaw is the problem of extending microevolution into macroevolution. Laboratory studies have shown that organisms are capable of adaptation. That is, living things have an ability to shift their biology to better fit their environment, like the color of peppered moths or the beaks of finches. However, those same studies have demonstrated that such changes can only go so far, and those organisms have not fundamentally changed. These small changes are called microevolution. Microevolution can result in some drastic changes, such as those found in dogs. All dogs are the same species, and one can see how much variation there is. But even the most aggressive breeding has never turned a dog into something else. There is a limit to how large, small, smart, or hairy a dog can become through breeding. Experimentally, there is no reason to suggest that a species can change beyond its own genetic limits and become something else. Long-term evolution, though, requires macroevolution, which refers to those large-scale changes. Microevolution could turn a wolf into a Chihuahua or a Great Dane. Macroevolution would turn a fish into a cow or a duck. There is a massive difference in scale and effect between microevolution and macroevolution. This flaw in the theory of evolution is that experimentation does not support the ability of small changes to transform one species into another. I hope this analogy will make the point clearer. Rather than Darwin's tree of life, where two species combine to produce a new species like leaves in a tree, instead, the Cambrian explosion reveals that new species come into existence and remain the same until they disappear from the fossil record. This can be symbolized by a lawn of grass where each blade of grass represents a species. Finally, there is a flawed application of evolution. This is not a flaw in the scientific theory, of course, but an error in the way the theory has been abused for non-scientific purposes. There are still many questions about biological life that evolution has not answered. And yet there are those who try to transform the theory from a biological explanation into a metaphysical one. Every time a person claims that the theory of evolution disproves religion, spirituality, or God, they are taking the theory outside its own limits. Fairly or not, the theory of evolution has been hijacked as an anti-religious mascot by those that have an axe to grind against God. Overall, there are many solidly scientific reasons to question the theory of evolution. These flaws may be resolved by science, or they may eventually kill the theory altogether. We don't know which one will happen, but we do know this: the theory of evolution is far from settled, and rational people can question it scientifically. This ends the GotQuestions.org article. Allow me to close this episode by reminding you, exercise daily, walk with God.
Thank you for listening to Defending and Commending the Faith with Joe Mott, a production of Wave 94 Radio in Tallahassee, Florida. If you have any questions or comments for Joe, please forward them to Doug Apple at Wave94 at this email address, dougapple@wave94.com. And be sure to join us every Monday evening at 6:45 p.m. on Wave 94 and subscribe through your favorite podcast app. Defending and Commending the Faith with Joe Mott.